morning, everybody.
The biology of movements.
Have you ever thought why people do exercise? Or what is the significance of doing exercise?
Being physically active is important to prevent heart disease and stroke. To improve cardiovascular health, you need to have proper exercise. So, how much time should I exercise? It is recommended that if you are doing a moderate physical exercise, you should exercise for 150 minutes a week. Or if you are doing a vigorous exercise, you should do exercise for 75 minutes a week.
During exercise, more glucose reaches the muscles. It decreases the chance of diabetes and maintains a normal level of glucose in blood. The stroke volume of heart increases. That is, the quantity of blood pumped in each beat increases. It causes the dilation of coronary arteries, increases the blood circulation all over the body. Cardiac muscles become strong, reduces the risk of heart attack. Exchange of respiratory gases become more efficient. Vital capacity increases. Breaks down the fat deposited in the body, reducing obesity.
Don't you see different types of movements? There are many movements inside our body which we cannot see. We can classify them into two, voluntary and involuntary movements.
Don't you see the different types of movements? There are many movements inside our body which we can't see.
Movements according to our will are called voluntary movements, and those which are not under our will are called involuntary movements.
We can classify our body movements into two, voluntary and involuntary. Examples of voluntary movements: movements of our hands, tongue, and legs. Examples of involuntary movements: heartbeats, abdominal movements, movements of eyeballs.
These voluntary and involuntary movements are brought about by the action of different types of muscles in our body.
These voluntary and involuntary movements are brought about by the action of different types of muscles in our body. Skeletal muscles, also known as striated muscles. These muscles are seen attached to bones. They are cylindrical in shape. Alternate light and dark bands called striations are present. Helps in the voluntary movements. Smooth muscles, also called non-striated muscles. As there are no striations, these are spindle-shaped, seen in the internal organs like stomach, small intestine, blood vessels, etc. Helps in the involuntary movements. Cardiac muscles, seen only on the walls of the heart, consist of branched cells. Striations are present. Helps involuntary movement of heart.
Now let us study the structure of a muscle cell.
Muscle cells are the fundamental unit of muscular tissue. These fiber-like cells are also called muscle fibers. Muscle fibers are seen in bundles called fascicles. Each muscle fiber is made up of 4 to 20 myofibrils. Each myofibril is made up of myofilaments, which are filamentous protein fibers. Myofilaments are of two types: thin actin filaments and thick myosin filaments. They are arranged alternately at regular intervals. Hence, they have a striated appearance. The region where both the myofilaments are present appears dark and is known as dark band, and the region that contains only actin filaments appears lighter and is called light band. One dark band and half of the two light bands on either side constitute a sarcomere. These are the basic contractile unit of a muscle cell.
The working of muscles, and let us find out the role of calcium ions in muscle contraction.
The impulse for contraction reaches the muscle through the motor nerve from the central nervous system. Then, the calcium ions are activated in the cytoplasm. Muscular cytoplasm is called sarcoplasm. Calcium ions help in the binding of actin and myosin filaments. Actin binds with the myosin head. Energy is released from the ATP at the myosin head. Using this energy, myosin heads pulls the actin filaments on its either side towards the center of the sarcomere. Contraction of all sarcomeres results in the contraction of the muscle. Impulse for contraction of muscles through the nerve. Calcium ions are activated. Myosin filaments bind with actin. Energy is released from ATP. Myosin pulls actin filaments closer. Muscle contracts. The energy we get from our food is stored in the mitochondria in the form of ATP molecules or adenosine triphosphate molecules. Hence, mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell, and ATP is known as the energy currency.
we engage in continuous and strenuous exercises, lactic acid accumulates in the muscles due to anaerobic respiration. This increases the acidity in the muscles and slows down the action of many enzymes related with muscle contraction. Hence, muscles get exhausted and temporarily loses the power of contraction. This condition is called muscle fatigue. When you take rest, the lactic acid is removed from the muscles and they regain their capacity for contraction. Now, let us find out the role of bonds in movements.
A newborn baby has got about 350 bones in his body. But as he grows, most of these bones combine together, leading to their reduction in number. An adult human has got only 206 bones in his body. Based on the position of the bones, human skeleton can be divided into two: axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton: skull, sternum, ribs, vertebral column. Appendicular skeleton: pectoral girdle, bones in forelimb, pelvic girdle, bones in hind limb.
Now, let us study how the combined action of muscles and bones facilitates different types of movements.
Muscles are attached to bones by fibrous proteins called tendons. In forelimbs, when one muscle contracts, the other relaxes. Such pairs of muscles are called antagonistic muscles. Most of our body movements are affected by antagonistic muscles.
Now, let us learn about different types of joints which helps in the movements of our body.
Joints are the meeting places of bones and helps in the movement of bones. Based on the structure and the type of movement, joints are classified into four types: pivot joint, hinge joint, ball and socket joint, gliding joint. Pivot joint: the point where the first vertebra joins with the skull, helps in the movement around an axis. Hinge joint, seen in knee and elbow, makes movement possible only in one direction, acts like a hinge. Ball and socket joint, where the humerus, that is, bone of the upper arm, joins with the pectoral girdle. The ball-like end of one bone fits into the socket of the other, makes movement possible in all directions. Maximum movement possible. Gliding joint, wrist and ankle. The flat ends of two bones, one slides over the other.
It provides shape and strength to the body, helps in hearing, protects the internal organs, etc. Now let us see how far the structure of joints suits its functions.
Cartilage reduces the friction between the bones. Synovial membrane secretes synovial fluid, which acts as a lubricant between the bones. Ligaments, which connects bone to bone, ensures that the bones are not displaced and holds them in position. Capsule covers and protects the joint.
You know that there are so many microorganisms in our biosphere which cannot be seen with our naked eye, like amoeba, euglena, paramecium, etc. Let us see how these organisms move.
Let us see how these organisms move. Paramecium. Small protein filaments called cilia enables movement of paramecium in water. Euglena. Long whip-like protein filaments called flagellum helps euglena in its movement. Earthworm. Its body consists of two types of muscle, circular and longitudinal, the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of which helps in the movement of earthworm. Apart from these muscles, there are minute structures called setae projected outward from the body, helps in its locomotion.
Have you ever thought about the movement in plants? Plant movements are affected by certain stimuli like water, sunlight, gravity, chemicals, etc.
Plant movements are affected by certain stimuli like gravity, light, water, touch, chemicals, etc.
In tropic movements, the direction of movements is influenced by the direction of stimulus.
In tropic movements, the direction of movement is influenced by the direction of stimulus. Phototropism, stimuli, light. Plant part that moves, stem, towards the direction of stimulus. Root, against the direction of the stimulus. Geotropism. Gravity. Stem against the direction of the stimulus. Root towards the direction of the stimulus. Hydrotropism. Water. Stem against the direction of the stimulus. Root towards the direction of the stimulus. Haptotropism. Touch. Stem towards or around the object that causes stimulus. Chemotropism. Presence of chemicals. Pollen tube. Towards the direction of the chemicals produced.
Have you observed touch me not mimosa plant? What kind of movements are exhibited by the plant? The movement in which there is no relation between the direction of stimulus and the direction of movement is called nastic movement.
The movement in which there is no relation between the direction of stimulus and the direction of movement is known as nastic movement.
Hope you all have understood today's chapter, Biology of Locomotion. Thank you.